Okay. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Pad Paramahansa, Padavajikacharya Ashtotar that Sri Srimad Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa, Padavajikacharya Ashtotar that Sri Srimad Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Quantaraj srimadbhagavatam ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Narayana Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jai Mudiriyet. Before reciting this Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and to Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, and to Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashtaprayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama shloke bhakti bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad-Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this second day of January 2019, in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad-Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Still in Canto 4, the creation of the fourth order, Chapter 8, Dhruva Maharaj leaves home for the forest. Text number 69. Sudushkadam karma kritpa lokapalaya rapi prabhu aishyat achadato rajan yasho vipalayang stava. Sudushkadam karma kritva lokapalaya rapi prabhu aishyat achadito rajan yasho vipalayang stava. Sudushkaram karma kritva lokapalaya rapi prabhu aishyat yachadito rajan yasho vipalayang stava. Sudushkaram karma kritva lokapalaya rapi prabhu aishyat yachidato rajan yasho vipalayang stava. Sudushkaram karma kritva lokapalaya rapi prabhu aishyat yachidato rajan yasho vipalayang stava. Sudushkaram karma kritva lokapalaya rapi prabhu aishyat yachadato rajan yasho vipalayang stava. Sudushkaram, impossible to perform. Karma, work. Kritva, after performing. Lokapalai, by great personalities. Api, even. Prabhu, quite competent. Aishyati, will come back. Achirataha, without delay. Rajan, my dear king. Yashaha, reputation. Vipalayan, causing to become great. Tava, your. Translation. So this is Narada Muni speaking to King Uttanapada, who is lamenting because of what he did to his son. My dear king, your son is very competent. He will perform activities which would be impossible even for great kings and sages. Very soon he will complete his task and come back home. You should know that he will also spread your reputation all over the world. All right, I'm going to mark it here. There's a mistake. We'll hopefully fix it. Well, my thing says, he will perform activities which he impossible. Do you see it? Okay. Purport. Here in this verse, Narada Muni has described Dhruva Maharaj as Prabhu. This word is applicable to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sometimes the spiritual master is addressed as Prabhupada. Prabhu means the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Pada means post. According to Vaishnava philosophy, the spiritual master occupies the post of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Or in other words, He is the bona fide representative of the Supreme Lord. Dhruva Maharaj is also described here as Prabhu because he is an acharya of the Vaishnava school. Another meaning of Prabhu is master of the senses, just like the word Swami. Another significant word is Sudushkaram, very difficult to perform. What was the task that Dhruva Maharaj undertook? The most difficult task in life is to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Dhruva Maharaj would be able to do that. We must remember that Dhruva Maharaj was not fickle. He was determined to execute his service and then come back to the palace. Every devotee, therefore, should be determined that in this life he will be able to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and by that process go back home, back to Godhead. That is the perfection of the highest mission of life. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Milatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So one note every morning, every day we say, usually several times a day, Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presnaya Bhutale. Now that Vishnu Padaya has different meanings, just like the word Prabhu here. Prabhupada doesn't mention it means master, that's why we all call each other Prabhu. We're not all calling each other the Supreme Personality of Godhead, right? So, but the way he analyzes it here, okay, Prabhupada, in this case, means, Pada means the post of the Prabhu, the Lord, right? That's another meaning of Prabhupada. So similarly, Vishnu Padaya means the post of Vishnu, as well as he has his meditating on the feet of Vishnu. So we can remember that. Also, one note on pronunciation, which is very common, Vaishnav. Vaishnav. It's a short A, Vaishnav. And Tulasi. Tulasi. It's all short, Tulasi. And that's why often it shortens to Tulsi, because they drop that A. So try to remember that. Because of the song, we end up with Tulasi, Krishna Prayasi. But try to avoid that. Okay, so this is a very important verse and instructions here. First of all, Narada Muni is assuring the king that Dhruva Maharaj is not in any trouble. King Uttanapada was lamenting greatly because he realized he had wrongly dealt with his son because of his being bewildered by his attraction for his favorite wife, Suruchi. Most beautiful. Suruchi means very beautiful. And then his son, he went out into the forest alone. He's only 5 years old. He doesn't know about his great powers and how he achieved them because of his association with Narada Muni. He's just learning that now. So he was just completely despondent what he'd done to his beloved son. He'd not let him get on the lap, get on the throne, and so forth. So he's assuring him he will perform activities, so he's still in the process. It's a 6-month process, which is very, very quick, especially in Satya Yuga, of realization, of full realization of God, getting full darshan of the Lord. In the third canto that I'm just working on now, the difference between seeing the Lord in the heart, which great yogis can do, and seeing the Lord outside, seeing the Lord with one's own eyes, getting a direct darshan of the Lord is a much, much greater benediction. And the 4 Kumaras were able to do that. They were able to see Vishnu. He came, saw them. They had been seeing him in the heart. So Dhruva Maharaj got that. He was meditating on Vishnu in the heart and chanting that mantra, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, and performing extremely severe austerities. And then Vishnu came down and he saw him and offered his prayers. So this is they perform activities which would be impossible even for great kings and sages. And this, I think, also refers to his incredible austerities, which we read about. Very soon he will complete his task and come back home, meaning come back home to you. You should know that he will also spread your reputation all over the world. So that's encouraging the king, but the king is also remembered for his mistake. So Prabhupada makes the point here that in the Vaishnava philosophy or the Vaishnava dharma in all sampradayas, The spiritual master occupies the post of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is why we sing Sakshad Harit Vena Samasta Shastra Uktas Tata Bhavadeva Sadbi. That the Sakshad Harit Vena. Now this ending, Sanskrit is such a precise language. The TV ending, TVE or TVENA or Tva, means like we have ness. We have God, there's God, and then there's godness, so we put li in there, godliness. There's a world of difference. So in the same way, the spiritual master is offered the same worship and the same honor due to the Lord because he's like an ambassador. He carries the mace, if you will, of the Supreme Lord, and he can receive the prayers, and he can pray to the Lord to offer benedictions, and Krishna is very compliant with the requests of the pure devotee. So therefore our essential medium, Prabhupada used the word via media, he really meant medium, between us and the divine is the spiritual master, and in general spiritual masters, those who are very advanced and are dear to, have become very dear to the Lord. So he's occupying the post. He speaks on behalf of the Lord. He repeats the words of Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. He manifests the qualities that are of a pure devotee that are spoken of in the Shastra, and he takes the trouble to teach. That's the definition of an acharya. Fully realized. So this verse, Tasmad Gurum Papaddeta Jigyashu Shreya Uttamam Shabde Padeta Nishnadam Brahmanupashamashayam. This is in the 11th canto, one of the teachings of the Yogendras. Before this verse, it's three or four verses, the Yogendra who's speaking, I always forget the names, he proves that you cannot achieve real happiness or peace in this material world. And then he says, therefore, if one wants Shreya Uttamam, the ultimate good for oneself, and ultimately for others, what is that good? Well, we know from the material side. Absolutely, on the material side, we're trying to achieve as much pleasure and happiness as possible and trying to diminish the pains as much as possible. So if you can become infinitely happy and reduce the pains to nil, that's the Shreya Uttamam, if it's possible, right? So here in Bhagavatam, and our philosophy says, yes, it is possible. You can't do it on the material plane, obviously, although people are trying. So then you have to approach the guru. Tasmad gurum papad. Guru means heavy. Gurum papaddeta. Jigyasu shreya. If one is curious or inquisitive about getting to this ultimate good, and as human beings we should. Problem is people don't even have any faith that there is such a thing. This is just life. You have to take the good with the bad. And sometimes you're up, sometimes you're down. That's they have no understanding, so they create a philosophy that it's not even worth striving for, or just in terms of what we know in the material plane, material sense gratification that includes subtle sense gratification. Therefore, the philosophy is the perverted reflection of the philosophy of approaching the guru and getting real Shreya Uttamam is increasing your sense gratification unlimitedly and doing everything you can to avoid any suffering. But that's ultimately the demoniac mentality of life, because it means that, well, I'll exploit anybody, I'll do anything in order to get as much wealth so I can buy what I really want to enjoy. And in this modern society, which, don't forget, is the lowest, is the last of the yugas, and so all of these fantastic sense gratificatory things we have now are just more and more symptoms of degradation. They just distract one completely from contemplating the spiritual side, which is 180 degrees opposed to sense gratification. And the Maya just covers the knowledge. The more extreme pleasure you enjoy on the sensual platform, the more extreme pain you will experience quickly. You don't have to wait till the next life. You think of drugs. People get tangled up in methamphetamine and whatever, and it's horrible. You may enjoy for a little bit. You're feeling so powerful, and but then in a very short time, you're the most wretched person. I don't have to describe it to you. Everyone is familiar with it. So, if you want to get real shreya, real happiness, then you have to follow the path and approach someone who's shabde pade. And then the definition, second half of the verse. Shabde pade cha nishnatam brahmani upashamashriyam. So, Brahmani here refers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and those things which embody the divine, such as the Shastra. So there's two elements here. Shabde means the heard, the Shruti, the revealed scriptures, and Pare, which is a shortened form of simply the Supreme Lord. Nishnatam, completely fixed in meditation on and in being in tune with everything that they instruct and represent. Brahmani, these two aspects of the absolute truth, upashamash, and fixed in those two, and then the third, last element, upashamashriyam, being completely indifferent, vairagya, indifferent, distasteful for any sense gratification or material thing. That's the definition, very important verse. So, this Dhruva Maharaj will occupy that post, and Narada certainly does. So he is going to be an acharya, and he is an acharya, especially after he realizes the Lord very quickly. This is within 6 months. So Narada Muni came back while Dhruva was practicing his austerities. So in other words, he's a bona fide representative of the Lord. He's an acharya of the Vaishnava school. Another meaning of Prabhu is master of the senses. That's where you get upashamashriyam. So what was the test that Dhruva undertook? And here's the second part of the purport here. The most difficult task in life is to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now this is interesting because in other places we read very easy. Pattam pushpam palam toyam. Yomai bhakti apayachati. Just offer a little fruit, flower, water, leaf, with bhakti, and Krishna is satisfied. Right? Pattam pushpam yomai bhakti apayat tadaham bhakti paditam ashnami pay. I eat that offering, and he reciprocates. Of course, the key element in there is the bhakti, which is not so easy to engender. But the idea is that the spiritual master, like Srila Prabhupada showed as an acharya, to show the compassion of the Lord. The spiritual master is an ocean of compassion, right? He wants to try to help anyone to become Krishna conscious. Srila Prabhupada perfectly exemplified that. But what he's really doing is transmitting again the mercy of the Lord, because the whole point is to give Krishna. Present Krishna in such a way that certain people, a few lucky ones, will be attracted, or at least interested. And that includes the philosophical presentation that undergirds the whole practices, as well as a practice that anyone can perform that will get one going in the right direction. And that's the chanting of the holy name, especially congregational chanting in the beginning. I mean, usually, practically 100%, people start out chanting with, joining in the kirtan, right? And then they learn about japa, which is very important, those two. So, who's ineligible? Nobody. Lord Chaitanya said, niyamatak smadanena kala. There's no niyama, there's no restriction as to time, place, or candidate in this chanting of your holy names. So that's like the supermost benediction. That's coming because of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That's Krishna himself. So the bona fide spiritual master does that, and Krishna sees the sincere effort of even a child or a person who's coming off of like super sinful activities, but somehow or other he gets drawn into the kirtan, and that's pleasing. That's pleasing to Krishna. At that stage of the person's development, to take those first baby steps is very pleasing. And so Krishna gives something. He gives some little bubble of bliss or something that is enough to keep the person coming back interested. What was that? Let me read this book that describes it. So in this way, pleasing Krishna is very easy at a certain stage. But as you go on, then to become more and more purified and have further experiences and really become successful, that's not so easy, to please Krishna in the ultimate sense. And so, Krishna, he takes a role he takes the main role in giving us just what we need to bring us forth. And sometimes that's chastisement. Sometimes that's suffering. When we deviate from the process and, we experience a lack of taste or we offend some devotee, So that's why it is said it is a razor's edge, or as the Bible says, straight is the gate. Straight spelled S-T-R-A-I-T, not S-T-R-A-I-G-H-T. It means straight means thin, like the Straits of Gibraltar or something. You know that, right? So it means it's not everyone can get in. There's a lot of, to get through that gate. So therefore, as you progress in devotional service, you realize, okay, I don't have to do what Dhruva did. That's not what the age that we're in. But there are austerities that are proper for us that we have to perform if we really want to go forward. So both of those aspects are there. Krishna says, Neha Brahmanashosti, even a little advance protects you from the greatest fear. So that means to that degree, Krishna is pleased. He's pleased. Enough pleased not to send you down into the lowest species of life, as opposed to the demons who he can cast down because they're incorrigible. There's a very important word for us. Incorrigible means you can't be corrected. Prabhupada says, how do you know there's a demon? Because if you give him good instruction, he becomes angry at you. That's in the Krishna book. You give him good instruction, he becomes angry. You're like Hiranyakashipu, right? So, of course, Hiranyakashipu was a devotee inside. That's another thing. But that's the... and our demonic side comes out when we have the opportunity to hear good instruction, someone just reading a purport of Prabhupada's, and, we're not paying attention. We don't show up. It's not interesting. And even if it's not interesting, you don't say, well, I got to be interested in it, so let me pay attention anyway. That's the acid test. Yeah, and and this is from Kapila Deva, and my brain doesn't forget is forgetting the actual Sanskrit. Shruti Matrena, that's in there. Is that the example? The poor devotee is, as soon as there's an opportunity to hear Krishna Katha, immediately the mind is enlivened. Shruti, simply by hearing, becomes completely absorbed, and the consciousness flows to that sound vibration like the Ganges flowing into the ocean. Very powerful flow. There's no question of stopping it. That's the symptom, is that there's this ardent desire to hear. You just think of the gopis. They can't stop speaking about Krishna. Sometimes they complain. There's a certain rasa, You all know this verse. Anyway, from the Krishna Karnamrita, this is a verse where he says, in the mood of the gopi, Radharani, it says to a friend, let everything that we've been doing to try to meet Krishna be finished now. Speak of something that's auspicious, but do not speak about Krishna, whatever you do. Katayata katam anyam danyam. Danyam means auspicious. Anya means other. Say something else. Enough already. Anyam, a whole radiation. But then she says, oh my goodness, he's in our heart. And morala morala smerakare manona yanotsave. Morala morala, sweet, sweet. Smerakare, his smiling form, is a festival for the mind and the eyes. Manona yanotsave. Kripana kripana Krishna Trishna Chidam Batalamane. This wretched thirst to meet Krishna is increasing more and more. So it's a mood, obviously. It's a very advanced mood, But the idea is that to come to the point where it's just, Prabhupada just uses this word, just like an addiction. It's like an addiction. He had a conversation with John Lennon and Yoko Ono back in '69, I think it was. They were hosting the devotees at their place near London. And so Prabhupada came. He finally had a place to stay, so he came over from America, from Canada actually, I believe. And he was staying there. What a benediction for them. But they were like, you've seen the picture, them in bed. And they were into drugs, heavy drugs, more than the others, at least more than George, I know. So it was obvious. I think there was a picture on the wall that was like something having to do with drug addiction, So Prabhupada used that word with them. They want to know, well, how do we recognize the guru? Something like that. He says, well, you find someone who is most addicted to Krishna. And you find that's... But that's actually how it is. You know, you read the Chaitanya Charitamrita. You know, Lord Chaitanya would get together with Ramananda Roy, Swarup Damodar, and a few other intimates, you know, and they would go all night, just speaking of Krishna. Go on chanting, go on chanting, go on chanting. He heard the Gita Govinda, you know, which is very intimate. We generally don't read that. But he loved to hear that. And by Jayadeva Goswami. And there was this one line, yeah. Rase hadami habihite vilasam smadadi manoma nakutapati vasam. Rase hadami habihite vilasam smadadi manoma nakutapati hasam. So here, in the rasa dance, or in the arena of the rasa dance, I remember Krishna, who was enjoying the pastime Vihita Vilasam, Smadadi Mano, my mind remembers, Mama Kritapati Hasam, he's joking and laughing with the gopis. I'm remembering that now. So Lord Chaitanya heard that line, that one, it's like a refrain of one song in the Gita Govinda. And he went into all this ecstasy. He said, go on, go on. And Ramananda Roy, I forget, or Swarup Damodar would chant, he chanted again and again and again, who knows how many hours, you know. And Lord Chaitanya was exhibiting all these symptoms, just that one phrase, you know, bringing to mind this most intimate thing. So this is, you know, supernatural. But the idea is to really become, you know, desirous, as Prabhupada would say, of immersing ourselves in Krishna Katha. That is the manifestation of Krishna in this age that is so accessible. You know, in every age, but especially this age, this is our chance. Beginning with the holy name and then going to everything else. Nama, Rupa, Guna, Lila. I remember when I read the Chaitanya Charitamrita for the first time, and there, I forget, Madhya Lila, was it the instructions to Rupa, maybe someone knows. There's the 64 qualities of Krishna that we see in the Nectar of Devotion. They're there in the Sanskrit, you know, in about 6 to 8 verses, there's all 64 qualities. Okay, small verses. I am Neta Suramyanga Sarvasar Lakshananvita. What a great way to remember Krishna. So I just applied my mind and I get those verses down. And then, not in the CC, but in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, there's a verse or two describing each quality. Fantastic. You know, this is how, you know, if you're going to learn about somebody, you put your mind in them, you know, you want to know, well, what are they like? You know, oh, Damodar Kumar. You know, his form is like this, and his personality is like this. He's a humble Vaishnava like this, he plays the drum, looks like this. Oh, okay, now I'm getting a picture. And you get a picture. There's so many pictures of Krishna, so much illustration. The point is, we have the name, we have the form, we have the qualities, and we have the pastimes of Krishna. So since the purpose of human life is to become absorbed in Krishna, and then everything flows from that, then your relationships and how you deal with the material world, that all flows from that. We should take advantage. Time is wasting. So, the most difficult task is to satisfy the Lord, and Dhruva will be able to do that. Remember that Dhruva was not fickle. His very name means not fickle. Dhruva means fixed. You know, Dhruva. I think it's one of the qualities, I mean, one of the qualities of the soul, but there's other qualities of the other descriptions that are like that. Kutasta. So he was fixed in his determination. That was the thing that he was fixed in. He's like a kshatriya. This is one of the qualities of a kshatriya, that he doesn't deviate. He faces the battle, faces death, and he's fixed. He still goes forward. So we're kind of, you know, on a battlefield here. Prabhupada used that analogy, you know, the battlefield Kurukshetra. We're all on a battlefield. We have so many enemies, internal enemies, right? Kamesha, Krodesha, Rajogunasamudvala, Mahashano, Mahapama, Vidyanam, Iha, Vaidyanam. Vaidyanam is the enemy. The enemies are not over there, Arjuna, on the other side. The real enemies are in here. The mind, the uncontrolled mind. Prahlad says the same thing. Uncontrolled mind means uncontrolled senses. So how are we going to get control of that enemy? You know, we can't do it on our own. We have to get the help of Krishna. You know, at the end of that section, what does he recommend? Evam buddhe padam buddha samstadyatmanam atmana jahi shaktam mahabhav kamarupam darasaram. He says, therefore, understanding that you, the soul, are transcendental even to the intelligence, can, conquer over this enemy of lust. Well, how do I do that? Well, by a yoga process. What's the yoga process? Okay, now I'm going to tell you. Maya sakta manaparta yoga. I'm sorry. Then he says, imam vivastate yogam. He describes, I spoke about this yoga process to the sun god. Well, what yoga process is that? Because he just ended the third chapter, he didn't mention it. But it's understood that there's a yoga process by which you can apply your intelligence and control the mind and senses systematically under the guidance of higher authority. And so that's what he's describing in the fourth chapter. And he goes on, and eventually, in the seventh chapter, 8, 9, it's all bhakti. But somehow or other, there's no way of getting around it. You have to control that mind and those senses with the soul, with the weapon of the purified intelligence. And then in purified intelligence and enlightened intelligence comes from hearing. We're back to the same point. From the Guru, who's channeling Krishna's words and exemplifying them, and from the Shastra, which is nothing but other gurus. Right? You read Shukadeva Goswami, all of them are instructing spiritual masters. So that purifies the intelligence, and then intelligence can control the mind. To say no and yes. No to those things that the mind is pushing you to do that you shouldn't do. And yes to those things that you may be reluctant to do that you should do. That's surrender. Anukulyena sankalpa, partikulyasya bharjana. So it all fits together. Now Dhruva was kind of a special case, but it's a perfect example of preaching. This is what Prabhupada used. You take the person's desire, right? Everyone has desire. Someone is at least ready to listen to a little bit. So there are a bundle of desires, and most of them are material. They may all be material. But the skillful preacher can take that. Yes, you want peace. I mean, how do you sell the books? Peace. This is a yoga process. Okay, I'll check it out. But the idea is that the desire becomes transformed in contact with Krishna. That's the whole idea. The desire becomes, you desire to eat, okay, come to have the Sunday feast. We have nice prasadam. Yeah, I'll check it out. I want to, my friend is a vegetarian, let me check it out. Somehow or other you come in contact, they become attached to the pakoras, and that's why it's so. And the beauty of the deities, Prabhupada said, just if they come in and appreciate it, it's very nice, then they've taken a step forward. I've heard, he was speaking in Juhu, This was before the temple was built, obviously, they're in the little shack, but the deities were being dressed so beautifully and people were appreciating. So this is preaching, the pujaris are preaching so much. We're preaching, you clean the floor here, that's preaching. People come in, it's cleaner than my house, it must be something special. So the whole idea is that the material desire, just like the material senses, they can drag us down to hell. But those material senses, if they're in contact with Krishna and things related to Krishna, then they become purified, and this way the person starts on their path. But the key element is that the intelligence has to become exposed to the words of Krishna, either directly through the spiritual master, and then one can apply the process of devotional service. That really keeps one on a firm platform, and that's what we see with Dhruva, is that he had this ardent material desire. Everything is like impossible to fulfill. I want to have a kingdom. It was kind of childish. A kingdom greater than my father's. Why just my father's grandfather? Even my great-grandfather, Brahma. He's up to Brahma now. So Dhruva, but he's fixed, So Narada Muni took that desire, and he gave him the process by which it would all become purified, and became Prabhu here, master of the senses, great acharya. So this is how we can also, use our practice devotional service ourselves. Is that by strictly practicing, we can feel our heart being transformed. But we have to be Dhruva. We have to be fixed in going through the barricades and the difficulties and reluctances to come to the point where we're really on fire. Prabhupada used that nice analogy, the rod of steel in the fire. Somehow or other, stay in Krishna consciousness. Keep your mind exposed to Krishna, And you'll become Krishna Kan, you'll become purified. Krishna Surya Sama Maya Hoyandakar Yahan Krishna Tahan Nahi Maya Adhikar. Very important verse. Prabhupada chose it as the motto for the Back to Godhead. Krishna is like the sun, Maya is like deep darkness. Wherever Krishna is shining, Maya has no sway, Maya has no power. So if we keep Krishna in our mind, then Maya cannot enter. And that's the actual essence of Sankirtan. If you're in the Sankirtan and absorbed, and the drum is beating, and you have the essential element in which we experienced on the Monday night of giving the holy name to people and seeing them respond, then that's pleasing to Krishna at that moment, and you're feeling transcendental. I mean, did anybody? We used to go down there every Friday, but there's so many. It was freezing cold, and then you see someone gets out of a taxi, some lady, and she practically has nothing on. So I'm like, goodness, But Hare Krishna. It's not like some kind of attraction there. It's like a pity, to have to do that to think you could be happy, So, but knowing the 6th canto, where it says even once hearing the holy name, destroys so much karma. Not just chanting, because it's hard to get people to chant, although a bunch of them were at one point, at least dancing, So you can see you're in the hands of Nityananda Prabhu, You can remember. And that's enlivening to the soul. That's how this movement grew. Beginning little crew in 26th Avenue, Nobody wanted to go outside. Everyone wanted to keep it inside. And Prabhupada said, no, we have to go on Harinam. The first Harinam was actually in Washington Square Park. I don't know if you read it. People think Tompkins that became more prominent. But first they went to Washington Square. I don't think any of you know, maybe from reading a book or something. But Washington Square Park was like a big center of the peace movement, folk music. Joan Baez came down there one time. There was a fountain. They would get up near the fountain and hundreds of young people would sing folk songs and everything. It was a real cultural node, if you will. So I used to go down there. I didn't go that Sunday, unfortunately. Didn't see the devotees, but and it was a revelation. You're out there and you're getting catcalls, I mean, they were going down, and there's a handful of them, like maybe 12 at maximum, and they're going down. I think only one of them was shaved up. I think Kirtananda maybe was shaved, Prabhupada was there in his robes, just leading the pack, and everyone was, and so, but it was blissful. Because they made the sacrifice and actually to declare, to witness, I'm a Hare Krishna, I don't care what you think, if you're curious, I'll let you know, but here's the name, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. There's a whole dynamic that goes on, and that's why congregational chanting is so essential, and especially, to go out. I'm thinking that we should try to figure out how we can go down every Friday. Of course the parking is there, but it's like $20. If you have 5 guys in a van, it's a big deal. But anyway, because that's where so many people are, really, it's really happening. Okay, it's after 8:30, and I like to stick to the present schedule, if possible. I'll read this translation again. My dear king, your son is very competent. He will perform activities which would be impossible even for great kings and sages. Very soon, he will complete his task and come back home. You should know that he will also spread your reputation all over the world. Comments, questions? Give him the Balaram. Oh boy, he took notes. No, I better.
There was a case where Prabhupada, he was walking out of some building. There's a bunch of disciples there. And then everybody was offered obeisances naturally, because that's what you're supposed to do. And there was one devotee, I think I read this in Shruta Kirti's book. There's one devotee, he didn't offer his obeisances, but just kind of, went like this, pranams. And then Prabhupada, he turned to Shruta Kirti and he said, oh, that's the beginning of his fall down.
Wow.
So I was just, because of course, you being a direct disciple of Prabhupada and many other disciples of Prabhupada, they don't really have to deal with certain things that the others have to, like the grand disciples. And one of the things that the grand disciples have to deal with is this idea of, with the present spiritual master's idea of either minimizing them, or you could say, blowing them out of proportion, you could say. And what I've seen over the years is that a lot of Indian people, whether they're in America or whether they're in India, they don't necessarily, blow the spiritual master out of proportion, but they do tend to have a lot of respect, a lot of faith in their guru.
Yeah.
Some of them blow it out of proportion too, but like my guru's, he's the acharya after Prabhupada, initiated devotees, he's the acharya after Prabhupada, and everybody else is kind of...
Oh, yeah, that's dangerous.
So, I don't know, maybe you could just comment on this idea of, because also we don't want to minimize, because sometimes that may be the tendency, oh, well, your guru, the only reason he's practically good, which you could say is true on one angle of vision, is because he's connected with the Prabhupada. But it's kind of like this idea that, yeah, he doesn't really have much qualification. Practically speaking, his only qualification is attached to Prabhupada.
Yeah.
Means he doesn't have much spiritual qualification himself. So I don't know, maybe you could comment on some of that.
Well,
of course it's a big...
of course, it used to happen, not so much anymore. That I would travel. I used to do a little more traveling, but I still travel. So a few times a year, and people would ask me, "Oh, why don't you take disciple? Why don't you take sannyas? Something like that." And I was truthful about it. My service, it requires a lot of sitting and it requires kind of a peaceful atmosphere, and just to travel all the time is, even my little traveling, it disrupts it, just inevitably. But there's also a deeper reason, and that is that it just seemed so exalted to me, to actually take responsibility, direct for so many souls, and I just felt that I didn't feel qualified. So, I have the greatest respect for my god brothers who have taken on that role, because it has to be done, and. It's been a rough road. ISKCON has somehow survived. It didn't always, it's not a given, just like Gaudiya Math. I don't think, before Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur disappeared, I don't think anyone was thinking this whole thing is going to dissolve. It was a tremendous engine. When you read that book, that Bhakti Vaibhava book, the things that are going on, so many presses, so many centers, so many devotees, and strong sannyasis preaching, it just seemed like a juggernaut that was going to really explode, and but it's the razor's edge. So what I would say is that the spiritual masters themselves would all say that yes, my only qualification is that I'm repeating the words of Srila Prabhupada and trying to do as he would do, and it's a difficult task. All of them would say, yeah, it's a jagya to actually be a spiritual master. Now the disciples themselves, this is why that book came out. This was a request of the GBC of Rabindra Swarup to write the book, the Founder Acharya book, which when it came out, I was in India at the time, in Mayapur. I happened to be there. And there was this whole push, yes, now everyone should read it. There's a requirement, we have to read it. Because to keep Prabhupada, not just titularly as the Founder Acharya, but really to understand the position and his central role in this movement, as long as there is a movement. It's him setting the mood and the method and the emphasis. And that we all have that relationship with Srila Prabhupada as the ultimate eternal Shiksha Guru through his books and lectures and everything and letters, that's there. But at the same time, there is the dynamic of having a personal spiritual master that's also essential. And that can't be minimized. And so the disciples need to take their cue from the spiritual master about how to relate to Srila Prabhupada And they're all going to say, oh yes, with great reverence and respect and awe and veneration and receptivity of the message and everything. And they'll all say, if they're bona fide, is that, yeah, I'm just doing this service for Srila Prabhupada. I'm they're taking the post of Vishnu, but they're also taking the post of Prabhupada for their disciples. So it's an ongoing challenge to keep the same attitude. Just like we're reading in the Upadeshamrita. It's important to understand how to relate to different levels of devotees. It's essential. And because that can become an offense that'll definitely impede your devotional service. So it can become exaggerated, the reverence for the present spiritual masters, and the problem with that is that Prabhupada gets pushed into the background. But that's why the programs are so important. When we read the Bhagavatam class, it's always on Prabhupada's books, and so having that. And Prabhupada's Murti and the pranam mantras and all these things. This is meant to keep Prabhupada in the center. So keeping Prabhupada in the center of the movement, but also keeping your own spiritual master deep in your heart and revering and following the orders. It's I don't want to say a balancing act, but it's a challenge that if it's met, you're secure in your devotional service. So it's. And there's been a lot of things written about it. So.
I just want to ask one more other question. It's a
different kind of question. Okay.
Just about you have gross sense gratification, you have subtle sense gratification. So in the realm of the karmi world or the vikarmi world, what exactly? I'm just trying to think of some examples in mind of people trying to enjoy subtle sense gratification in the vikarmi world. What do you think would be some practical?
There's a lot more subtle sense gratification than gross sense gratification.
Yeah.
The whole entertainment industry. I mean, especially just when it's a screen, rather than going out to a concert and dancing or something. But all of that, vicarious entertainment business is a subtle sense gratification. Now it's based on gross sense gratification, because basically what you're doing is witnessing or identifying with someone often trying to enjoy gross sense gratification. But the experience itself is basically in your mind. But you see how powerful the mind is. People forget themselves completely. Another one would be video games. Video games are, in terms of dollars, there's more spent on that than there is on movies now. I don't know if you know that. They have whole tournaments. They have it's like a big sport now, and people just. But you can see how absorbing that is. In other words, it's one thing to get into gross sense gratification, but you pretty well quickly bump up against the limits of your own physical ability to enjoy. It's very degrading very fast. But imagine if it's just you're identifying with some avatar on the screen, a very high definition, they keep improving the dang thing. And so, you're totally absorbed. You think you're that person, and then you're fighting against somebody in Korea, another guy in Japan. I mean, I remember I used to play games. I got into Monopoly, and games like that, chess, which could be very absorbing. I mean, anything can be absorbing. But to have all of those images and sounds, and next thing you know, they'll put fragrances up there, is just crazy. That's subtle sense gratification. It can be extremely powerful. So that we live in an age when the demons, have taken over everything. The schools, the other institutions, everything, especially the businesses, and their whole focus is one focus: to make more money. And if they can get you addicted to anything at all, they'll do it. Just like this Facebook. I'll end with this. This is the most amazing thing now. Somehow Facebook never appealed to me. I know it can be a good preaching platform and this and that, but it always seemed to be basically just, look at me, like a whole thing. Oh, pride. I was never attracted. So Okay, I missed out. I'm missing out. But what's happened now is they have this thing called deep fake. Have you ever heard of it? This is the latest thing. It's insane. Deep fake. Deep fake? Yeah, I think it's called deep fake. What it is that they've got the software now. So people post so many pictures of themselves on Facebook and Instagram and everything, right? So they're out there. So they have software which can take all those pictures and then put your face on another video, and it looks completely realistic. Is that, Barack Obama is saying something, like, oh, I'm going to bomb Russia or something. And it looks completely realistic. Or now what's happening is all these ladies, they get on there and they put their face on some pornographic thing, and it's like a disaster. They put their enemies get on it. That wasn't there before. So this is an example of how this vanity, which let's just say that's a big part of what Facebook is about. Look at me, and so forth, is boomeranging back on people who have so many pictures out there. They're out there now, and they can be used by anybody to create this deep fake and put your face on something that and then it goes viral and say, well, what about this? That's fake, but it's out there. You have to deal with it. So being very humble and not pushing yourself forward and not, getting your pictures everywhere and taking, like that, has an advantage. Yeah. Go ahead. Give him the mic.
You made the point earlier that, as Arjuna was saying to Krishna, but it's actually like our own lust, that's or envy or whatever, these bad qualities. It's not like anything external, but we're all dealing with our own anarthas, our own demons. And so I was just thinking about reflecting on this, on how when we're confronted with a situation in which something, or even it may be injustice, maybe somebody is envious towards us, or maybe some situations before us, and then it awakens our lust, and so many things. But sometimes we take the external situation to be the enemy. Like, oh, maybe perhaps I'm in downtown and I'm seeing so many things. Actually, I shouldn't be here. But actually, or like, I have a question about perhaps what if, like, we're in an ashram situation.
Yeah.
And what if, like, devotees have
Prabhu, let's take this into the lounge, because we have this whole program now with Jamal.
Right.
And I'll deal with that because it's getting very late.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay? Okay, all glories to the Prabhupada.